Welcome back to the Small Market Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Witucki, alongside my co-host, AJ Hoffman. We are brought to you tonight by Curveball Collectibles at 166 North Center Road in Saginaw, Michigan, and the Chemical City Paper. Our guest tonight is college football offensive mind for over 20 years, most notably with the Auburn Tigers and his 2004 undefeated season, Mr. Al Borges. Al, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Fantastic. Thanks for coming on with us.
We're doing awesome.
That's good to be with you.
Yeah. So, Al, you have a book coming out called Deny of the Tiger, which chronicles that 2004 undefeated season where you guys were snubbed from being chosen for the national championship game at the time. What was your inspiration to write this book?
There's a couple, but one of them was that, being denied the opportunity. But that was, it's 18 years ago, right? I mean, some of that's worn off. But it's funny. I had a great experience in Auburn. I mean, a great one. I was there 4 years. We won 41 games, and it was memorable. But my son, who was just a little kid, I mean, he was like 4, I think, when we left, never lost that Auburn fandom, if that makes any sense, okay?
Yeah.
He's still got it in his blood. I mean, he follows Auburn. You think he'd be a Michigan fan, but he follows Auburn as his buddies all give him crap. But he follows Auburn. He basketball, football, baseball. He knows the recruiting. He knows it all. And now he's 17, all right? Mm-hmm. Now, he was a little hard back then, but now he's 17. So he says, Dad, I want to go to Auburn. So I said, all right, what's the best atmosphere I could put him in, the best setting for Auburn to show him the essence of the place? So I said, let's go to the Iron Bowl. So I've been doing Zooms all year for WTKA in Ann Arbor, the radio station with Sam Webb.
Yep.
And I go to every game. We do telestrations. We do a whole hour deal every week. But that week I decided not to go to the Ohio State-Michigan game and take my son to Auburn, Alabama. Went there, had a great time. I mean, he got a chance to see the essence of it. He saw a really good game. The wrong team won, but still was a good game. I got to see some of the kids, they're not kids anymore, but some of the guys I coached back then. But the thing that was the coolest is I got a chance to see the fans again, and it was like I never left. It was 18 years ago. You think it was yesterday. I was getting stopped at every turn. People just, it was neat. It was a great stroke to my ego. But more than that, it brought back some wonderful memories. So when I came back to Michigan, I sat down and I had two things that resonated with me. One is my son now has to go to Auburn. I mean, it was just too good of an experience. I mean, there was no doubt about that. That was solidified. And number two is I wanted to do something. What could I do for the fans that were so great to me when I was there and so great to me when I came back 18 years later? And I couldn't think of anything to do. And the first thing came to mind, I said, you know what? I'm going to write a book. Now, guys, I'm a football coach, okay? This is not Ernest Hemingway or John Gresham. Okay? Let's be clear on that. And I say that in the book, not to mention a lot of other things. So I said, I'm going to write the book, but I'm going to write the book like a coach. I'm not going to write the book. I want to make sure there's good sentence structure, and I don't want us to look illiterate and all that, but they'll edit all that out. But I told them one thing I don't want you to edit out is the coaching stuff. And it's a little PG at times. And it doesn't get into R or X too much, but it's a little PG at times. But I did not want to belie the authenticity of the scenarios. If there was a time during the game that was emotion-filled or something, I made that clear to the fans. What I said to the quarterbacks, what I said to the offense, the whole thing. And what I did that really helped, this was a key thing. I had 13 DVDs of every game we played that season. So I went back and put them in my Blu-ray and watched them one play at a time. And so many thoughts were triggered from watching those things that, it's been a while now, right? I said, the quarterback come to the sideline and go, God, I remember what I told him there. We break into the locker room for halftime. I remember what I told him at halftime. So many things just came back, It was a great deal there. So the inspiration was my son, first of all, just getting me to go to Auburn. But once I came back, the experience I had in Auburn inspired me to write the book.
Okay. Now, going into that 2004 season, the previous year, Tommy Tuberville, that was his 5th season as head coach, and they were 8-5, I think. And what is the mood? I guess my question is, what is the mood in the locker room going into that season? You got a new offensive coordinator. I believe that was your first year there. And your coach is kind of on the hot seat to some degree.
Well, kind of.
So
that seat was crisp. Yeah, no.
How was that for you coming in, as the new guy trying to get this offense going, knowing that your backs are immediately against the wall by association?
No doubt. That's a great question. I mean, that's a great lead-in to the whole thing, because I came as an underdog from Indiana. There had been 3 guys that had already interviewed for the job, and I called in late because I heard about it late, and I had the strength coach that I had worked with at UCLA. To Kevin Yoxel, I said, Yox, what's the odds of getting this job? He goes, oof. He goes, I'll talk to the coach, but he's already interviewed 3 guys. So when I got off the phone, I thought, I don't think I'm going to get this job, Well, it turned out they called me like the next day or 2 and said, come on. So I came, and you hit it on the head. It was a tumultuous 2023 because the expectations were high. A lot of the publications had rated Auburn in the top 5 because of the returning group and the talent level they had. They felt like they were going to have a really good team, and they lost the first couple games, and they weren't moving the ball at all. I think it took them the 3rd game to score a touchdown. And they had changed coordinators, made the line coach a coordinator, and oh God, you know what hit the fan, right?
Yeah.
So the season went through. They had a lot of ebb and flow, and then the last game before Alabama, after the Georgia game, the fans, the big wigs had had enough. Okay, they'd had enough. They were going to make a coaching change, so they worked behind the scenes to get the coach at Louisville there. They beat Alabama. Well, beating Alabama now, man, that's like a breath of fresh air, right? That's like lady in the balloon, okay? And they found out that they had done this behind the scenes, and all hell broke loose, okay? And they kept Tuberville, but like you said, it was a hot seat. I knew it coming in, you know what I mean? And fortunately, I had a 2-year contract, but I that's nice, but that doesn't get you any wins, okay? Right. So I came in as this is how I use this analogy in a book. Okay, I'm going to say I don't want to talk too much about the book, but this is. Have you guys seen My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah, great movie.
Okay. I've seen it 10 times. I love the movie, at least 10, maybe more. I was Vinny Gambini. Okay, I was the West Coast version of Vinny Gambini. I came in, I didn't know how to talk, know how to dress, didn't know what they ate, drank, or anything. I mean, and they didn't know me from Adam, and I came from Indiana, which didn't have a great football reputation. I'd had a lot of successes at other places I'd been, but not in Indiana. So I was not a popular pick. And I had, like Vinny Gambini, I had to earn an unconventional merit at the end of the movie. He's kind of the hero, but through the movie, they think he's a moron, right?
Right.
Well, that was kind of me until we started doing real well. I had a culture, not culture shock, but culture adjustment to the South that went beyond coaching. Listening to how guys talked. I mean, I allude to this in the book several different times just to give people who are from the South an idea what it's like to be that fish out of water. Okay, but the adjustment was good because I'm a little bit of a chameleon anyway. I can adjust to darn near any environment, but not instantly. I mean, there is a little learning curve there, and some acclimatizing or whatever they call it. But it's an interesting part of the book, because I tell the book is yes, it's about 13 games, but about a third to half of it's storytelling, how we got to that point with the things that happened, and a lot of it is funny, a lot of it's compelling, and the funny parts are mostly at my expense. So that's really what the book's about. I didn't want it to be a normal book. They've done like several publications on this season because it was such, it's a pretty interesting deal when you win every game and you don't go to the championship. And you're an SEC team. That's just unheard of.
Well, that was one of the big that season. There was 5 undefeated teams total, and that was one of the seasons that really launched the serious discussions of college football playoffs.
I really believe it was the impetus.
Yeah.
It didn't happen for 10 years now. It didn't happen till 14, but it was the impetus. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, Al.
No, you guys cut me off anytime you feel like. I tend to talk too much anyway, but I think it was a driving force behind the change. Okay, when it was an unusual season. SC in Oklahoma went wire to wire, and we did too. But we came from 17. We started at 17, and we had to. We didn't hear any noise at the beginning like they did the year before. They assumed we were going to be average. But all of a sudden, we start winning games. Here comes the noise. Here come the distractions. Then when you get down to the last 3 or 4 games of the season, it's like baseball scoreboard watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, how'd they do? How many did they win by? You know what I mean? It was hard to block it out, but our kids were so focused because of 2003. They were not taking their eye off the ball, and it was really cool as a coach to get that kind of intensity, that kind of focus week in and week out with a team that really didn't care who got the credit. It was one of those deals. It's a special football team.
Well, what was the turning point in that season then? I mean, you had the 10-9 win against LSU, the defending champs.
That was one of them.
And then I believe you had a big win against Tennessee, where you kind of blew the doors off them.
Was a real one. Okay. I describe it this way. Okay, and I don't want to tell because so much of this is in the book, but I want to tease it a little bit too.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
LSU to me was a game. The title of that chapter is a fist fight described as a football game, or disguised as a football game. Okay, because it was so physical. Okay, but what that game did for our team is prove to us we could play with anybody. LSU had won the national championship the year before. They were extremely well coached. Nick was the head coach, and Will Muschamp, who I worked with later, was the defensive coordinator. Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator. What Jimbo's done. And they were extremely talented. But after the game was over, we proved a couple things. One, we could come back and win. But more than that, we could play with anyone. We could play with anyone. Score was 10-9. The kicker needed a mulligan on the kick because we got a penalty and got to re-kick it and beat them 10-9. But that wasn't the turning point. That was just the game that made us believe we could play with anybody. The turning point to me was Tennessee. That was what I call the coming out party. That game proved we could beat anyone. At least we believe we could at that point. We said, okay, we can play with anybody with LSU, but we can beat anybody because we didn't just beat Tennessee. We took them apart.
Yeah.
And we took them apart in Knoxville, where that just isn't done much back then. We're not a Phil Fulmer team. So we left Knoxville believing that bring it on. Who's next?
So at the end of that season, well, now flash forward into the future. All the things come out about USC in the scandal. College football is a sport where this happens a lot. Even college basketball, college athletics in general. You don't see it in pro sports much. It always seems to come out years later. They had players that were, let's say, being paid under the table. There's all this stuff going on. As a coach, what's it like in that culture where you guys basically got shafted by a team that really shouldn't have been there if they were playing by the rules. But it happens so much in college football. It's like there's just an apathy about it seems like.
Yeah, but believe me, after the fact, that hurt more than it did at the time. Okay, we were the odd men out. I truly believe we were a better team than Oklahoma. There's nothing will make me believe we would have beat Oklahoma. And that's with all due respect to Oklahoma, because they had a good year and had a good team, but they didn't match up with us. Now SC, that would have been hard. I'm not going to kid you. SC had Lindell White, they had Reggie Bush, we had Ronnie, and we had Cadillac. Yeah. They had Leinart, we had Jason Campbell. Our receivers were we were almost mirror images of each other. Defensively, we led the country in scoring defense. Okay, so if they weren't going to just go through us like they had gone through some of the teams early in the year. So when it was over, I was disappointed because we didn't get to play them, because I really believe we could beat them too. But I'm not going to say. If you put Norm Chow on this, he'd tell you they beat us. I think it goes both ways. But I'm just saying that after the fact, when you hear what happened, okay, they got caught doing something they shouldn't have been doing. I don't know, I guess. But why aren't we the champions? Give me a reason for that now. That's the next thing. I says, all right, they screwed up. They clobbered Oklahoma. You can't tell me Reggie Bush made a 55-19 difference. He might have made a touchdown or two difference, but he didn't make that big a difference, okay? Utah was a hell of a team. They weren't as good as us. They couldn't beat us. They just didn't match up good enough against us. So at the end of the day, who's the best team in the country? To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a lot. You don't vacate it. Nobody vacates a championship. Only if you don't have a legitimate champion. Then you vacate a champion. But to us, what did we do wrong? Nothing. We won every game. We didn't have any recruiting violations. We did everything right, and they still didn't pick us, and that's frustrating. And that's another reason I wrote the book, and the title of the book being what it is. Now,
I'm going to kind of move away from the book and ask you some general questions about college football since I got you on the show here, Al, if that's all right.
Sure.
There's a lot of talk, especially around these parts up in Michigan, with them having their struggles against OSU up until this year. Talent level. The talent level for the schools up north is not the same as the talent level for the schools down south. You've been at UCLA, Cal over in the Pac-12. You've been at Indiana, Michigan, been in the SEC. Oregon, yeah. You've been at a fair amount of schools to be able to be a good judge of this. Is the talent level that big of is there that big a difference of a talent level that there should be such favoritism to SEC schools?
Is there that big? No. Is there a talent level difference? Yes. No. You're just you're a few players away from being able to play with them. Okay, now the Michigan played Georgia, and believe me, I beat that game up and down. Now we did a post game analysis on it. I could tell you every play. I got it memorized. Georgia played about as good as they could play. I mean, they did. They played, and the offense coordinator was hot. He was calling passes into matchups the whole game. I mean, it's a clinic. Did speed play a part? You bet it did. They're fast, and that's the one thing I think where they're a little better is they recruit a little bit more speed. But I'm going to say this: I was at Michigan. We recruited a lot of guys against Alabama and won. We beat them on guys. Okay, so it isn't like you're going in there saying, "Well, Alabama gets every guy." They don't. So what you are really is a few plays away, a few players away from being able to play and beat those people. Think about it now. If they can get to the top four, they're about 3 or 4 recruits away from winning the whole thing, in my opinion. Okay? How were they when they did win the whole thing? What's it? Right?
Yeah.
Does Alabama have anybody that good? No. They don't. They don't. And they got some good guys, but they got nobody that good. Okay? Who's their wide receivers? You guys Michigan fans?
I'm drawing a blank. You put me on the spot here, Al.
For Alabama?
No, for Michigan during that 97 season.
Think about the guys that played for Michigan when they won it. They're guys like Alabama has. They're guys like Georgia has. They had Glenn Steele, I believe.
Yeah.
He was dominant inside as a defensive tackle, much like the kid they had this year that for Georgia. I mean, they had those kind of guys, and that's why they could play that level of football. They're not quite there yet. They're not as good as that 97 team, but they're not a long way off anymore. So I'm just saying, 3 or 4 key recruits in some key positions, enhance their speed, get a big run stopper in the middle. Hell, they can win it. They can win it.
So do you see this previous year then being the anomaly, or do you think they're actually on the precipice then of something great?
Yeah, I don't think it's an anomaly. I'll bet you they got their whole to show you they got their whole offense back now, and they're better. They've got a center that might be the best center. Could probably win the Remington. Okay, they got them
from Virginia. Yeah,
and Vistara's was a good center, but this kid's another level center. Okay, he's going to help them. They're pretty much the same offensive lineman, right? They've got all back, right? They got Schomaker back, right? Yep. They enhanced their receivers because now the slot's back. Bell, okay. They're moving. Sanders still, he's playing nickelback on defense. Okay, so they got a lot of people there. Edwards is ready to break out. This kid's a talent now. He can catch it.
He's a stud.
Oh, he's a stud. He's like Ronnie Brown. Not quite as big as Ronnie, but he does a lot of the same stuff. And then they got the little guy. They got Corum. The quarterbacks, 2 kids that are very capable. One who's systematically very good, and another kid who's an NFL talent. You know, he's going to have to prove he's the best quarterback for their team. But their biggest issue, I think, is going to be filling some holes on defense. But they've always pretty much been able to do that. But their offense shouldn't miss it. Shouldn't not only not miss it, but should be better. Really, if they keep everybody intact, should be better. So why not? Why not? Why? The only thing I would say is if the defense can fill the void, they'll be right back there.
Yeah, I would say your defense you lost a lot of guys on defense. You had Daxton Hill on the back end and stuff. So
Aiden and then Ajabo. Yeah, it's two speed rushers are tough to lose, but they'll have other guys. Michigan can get those guys. I'm telling you, they can get them. It's just putting it together, getting a little chemistry, keeping everybody healthy, and getting solid quarterback play week in and week out. Because not many teams win it without that. Yeah. You can't all of a sudden spaz out one game because you'll lose to somebody you shouldn't lose at that position. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think if they get all that stuff, I think they'll be right back in the fold again.
What about, if you coach Cadillac Williams, Ronnie Brown, like you said, Denard Robinson, who is the, pound for pound, who is the best athlete that you had coached?
God, you're about the fifth guy to ask me this question.
Do I get an award for that, Al? Or?
No. I have a hard time because I feel like I'm slighting somebody else. I've coached probably 100 NFL players. I've coached 3 first-round draft pick quarterbacks.
Right. Cade McNown, one of my favorite, college quarterbacks of all time.
Miniature Tebow.
Yeah.
Think about it. Miniature Tim Tebow. He didn't run a spread, but he could have. Okay, he threw the ball just like Tebow, big, long, left-handed sling.
Yep.
Playmaker, jumping over dudes, doing all the same stuff Tebow did. Really.
Oh yeah.
Miniature Tebow, because I saw Tebow go. I had deja vu, man. I said that I coached that kid. Well, he's a little bigger. He's bigger version, but same type of player. But it's just too hard. I mean, overall skill set, probably Ronnie was as good as it because he could catch a ball with his eyes closed. I mean, he was unbelievable hands. Ran at the combine, he ran sub 4.4, and he weighs 230 pounds. What else you want? What else you want?
Right.
I mean,
well,
right? I mean, tough, smart.
Coach, let me ride the coattails of that question just a little bit, and I don't know if anybody's asked you this or not, but as far as guys like Cade McNown, Denard Robinson, Devin Gardner, you've coached just a ton of them. When you're in the moment, are you trying to develop that guy for the NFL, or are you just trying to develop him for your system at the time?
No, just for our system.
Okay.
The residual is NFL. We don't.
So that's an after effect. At what point does something click while you're coaching like Cade or Denard or somebody, and you're like, oh yeah, this guy's going to the league? Like what is it that guy shows you that you're like, oh, he's going to be more than just a great player for our school?
At what point is a hard answer, but you know it. Here's a big thing: coaching players who can play next level football. Okay,
yeah,
they have to fit all the prerequisites. Okay, they have to, unless they're just an anomaly, they have to be a guy that can throw accurately, right? Good functional intelligence, pocket presence, leadership skills, toughness. Yeah. A lot of those things. Cade had a lot of it. Cade wasn't the prototype. He's about 6'1", right? Good arm strength, not great arm strength. Pretty accurate for the most part. But here's the deal, guys. When you go into the NFL for the quarterback, you play in college. You play on 40-foot hash marks. Okay, in pro ball you play on 6 yard. The hash marks are 6 yards apart. Okay, so every ball is thrown from the pocket. Every throw is a throw. You know what I mean? There are no, like in college, you could throw it into the boundary and keep the throw short, or you could sprint to the field and keep the throw short.
Mm-hmm.
So you could quarterbacks with lesser arms, you could kind of cover their ass a little bit. You know what I mean? You'd have to throw every ball from the pocket. In pro ball, ain't none of that now. There's not much sprint out pass in pro football. You got to throw the ball from within those. So every time you drop back, if you can't make those throws into those cracks that can be very, very tight with coverage that's very, very tight, and give that receiver a chance to make that play with consistency, you're going to struggle. And that's where some of the guys fall by the wayside. Jason Campbell was out of Central Casting. He was a 6'5" kid with a big arm, nice quick release. He had played with 4 coordinators in 4 years. That's the bad news. But the good news is he played for 4 coordinators in 4 years because he learned a lot of offense.
Yeah.
And when I got him in the 4th year, there wasn't much I could throw at him that he didn't understand. Because he wasn't ingrained in one system. That was bad for him, but that was good for me because I couldn't fool him with anything. I didn't want to fool him with anything. He wasn't. The learning curve was small because everything he'd done before in some way, shape, or form. Now, the nuance, I taught certain nuances about the position with the footwork and such. It might have been a little different, but it wasn't so drastically different that he couldn't make those adjustments. So I didn't answer that question, not with a damn. But
no, it was a terrible question anyway. So
really
don't worry about it.
Terrible. It was a good question. I don't know when that happens, but I can tell you at the end of the season who I think has a chance to play next level football after I've seen him play X amount of games, perform under pressure.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now you said that it can get masked for some of those quarterbacks. Is that why you see some of these guys that are really high profile in college football and then they go to the league and they just don't fit? Is that a lot to do with it?
Yes. Answer that. It's simply yes. Here's the deal in college, okay? And Tim Tebow and Cade was a bit of a product of this. Is the question is, can the playmakers in college, the Tim Tebows, the Cade McNowns, right?
Yep.
Throw the ball well enough in pro football to make up for the plays that they're not going to be able to make in pro football because of the speed of the defense. You take a guy that runs around, raises hell, scores touchdowns, and everybody's like, Tim. Tim's as good a college quarterback as I ever saw. But what Tim didn't necessarily equate to professional football. He had to fill the void with his passing that he couldn't do with his running in college, okay? All those quarterback runs you see him do, and they don't want to get the quarterback hurt in pro football, so you don't have as many of those. So without that, where does he pick up the slack? He's got to be able to throw it, right? Got to be able to throw it. And if he can't throw it to fill that void, he can't make it in the league. You just can't do it. I've said it from the beginning. If you can't pass in that league, you can't make it. You might make it for a little while, but eventually
it catches up with you.
Yeah, it's caught up with a couple guys. I won't mention any names, but it's caught up with a couple guys.
It has, yeah.
But we're really, you thought we're going to be good 1 year, and then all of a sudden, what happened? Well, he kind of faked it pretty good for a year, but they caught up. They catch up with how you play. They're good coaches, and they'll make you play left-handed, so to speak, and not allow you to do the things that you want to do in pro football. It's just, I've seen it for years and years,
So, Al, being at so many places, you got to experience a lot of different fan bases, and you said that, going back to Auburn, the fans were really appreciative and really welcoming and stuff. Sometimes fan bases can have very unrealistic expectations of their team. I will reference the University of Michigan. If you look at a lot of the blogs and you go to a lot of the fan sites, some of these fans just seem out of their mind. Which fan base though is usually the most unrealistic out of the places you've been? I don't want you to really, I guess that's not putting anybody on blast, but
no, because all the fan bases were pretty good. I thought, and Michigan's fan base was hard on me, but I think they got great fans. That's my job. They're coming after you now, whether you like it or not. If you don't win, they're gonna pick on the lieutenants, and I was a lieutenant. But I don't know. I found the Michigan fan base to be pretty educated, a little snobbish now.
Okay, well, I've heard that about them as well.
That Cal was the same way, believe it or not. Cal and Michigan, and Cal had nothing to back it up. But Michigan had something to back it up. But but not uneducated. The fan base was, they had a reason they were a little snobbish. I tell you, doing this Zoom I've been doing with Sam,
mm-hmm.
Great questions these guys ask. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm impressed. They know more than the average fan. Now, they don't know as much as they think they know because they never do. Unless you do it, it's,
Right.
But in fairness, there's some pretty darn educated questions with some guys that, that are diving in. Our show takes a deep dive. I do telestrations. I show quarterback reads, footwork, what's wrong, from my perspective, right, wrong or indifferent. Another quarterback coach coordinating my thing. But this is how I would coach it. It may be right, it may be wrong, whatever. But I got, we were getting up a week ago. We had 23,000 views the last time we were on. And some of the comments were just fantastic. I mean, you get some morons now. Some guys come out with some really stupid stuff that just indict them. But those are few and far between. There isn't very many of them. Most of the guys are pretty perceptive. Listen, ask good questions, and I found the Michigan fan base to be very learned. Now, the Auburn fan base was more rabid. Okay, they were wacko. Okay, I'm talking wacko, and I love it. I friggin' loved it. They're not as much into how you block an off tackle play as what the result of the off tackle play. I'll give you an example. We beat LSU 10-9. You think they criticized the offense? They couldn't care less. We got one more point than they did.
Well, that's the difference.
At Michigan,
though.
You would take hits for how that game went.
They're never. They could win by 15, but if it wasn't a route, they're coming at the offense, or
that is a difference. That is a difference. They're more analytical. They are, and you can't really put them down. That's the way they think. But all they care about is it's kind of the old in the South. It's like Al Dave, just win, baby. Just win, baby. They'll carry you off on your shoulders. So you can figure out a point. I said at one point in time, in the book, I mentioned this. I said, they didn't know who I was, right? They didn't know who I was. But at the end of the day, if I could coach football, I didn't have to know the difference between a magnolia tree or a mint julep, okay? It was all the same to them, okay? Win, and we'll love you. And as long as we got one more point than them when the game's over, they were happy. But that's not the way it is. You got to have some style points certain places. That's fan. That's the deal.
Does that affect recruiting at all when you're out on the recruiting trail?
Can a little bit. The recruits want to know is if they can play in a league. Okay, even if you don't win, if they think you can put them in the league, that's where they're going to go to school. And even there's a minuscule amount. Not a minuscule. That's not fair. A good, lesser than you think, I'll say, amount are into the academic end. They want it. Their parents are into it now.
Mm-hmm.
And you have some students that are into it. But some of them, they did a survey a few years back. They still go to the school for the football program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They still go to school. That's why they're going. The football coach is selling them. It's not some professor. Yeah. So that's what you have to sell as a football coach is your ability to develop him and to play next level football. That's today. Now, it's always kind of been, but more today than ever. See, the old days, you remember, you guys might be too young, but Oklahoma used to run a wishbone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't anybody run a wishbone anymore? Nobody stopped the wishbone. That wasn't new. Like guys caught up with it. They were running it good the day they stopped running it. Well, they stopped running the wishbone because kids didn't perceive themselves as playing NFL football in that offense. So recruiting started hurting them a little bit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they switched into an offense or evolved into an offense that they felt they could recruit better to. So the only guys that run those types of offenses are academies, right?
Right, yeah. Your Navy, your Army. Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's a lot of it. But when you're recruiting, can I play early, and are you going to put me in the league? Right. Those are the two things I think that'll come up the most. The can I play early has taken on a life of its own with this transfer portal. I thank the good Lord I didn't have to deal with that. That would have retired me before my time. But but that's they got to think they're going to get on that field because if they're second string by the time they're a sophomore, they're still in the backup. They're leaving.
Yeah,
there's no more. Well, see, I grew up, guys. When I was coaching, the starting quarterback sometimes he didn't start till as a junior or senior. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. That just doesn't. The guy's gone. He's gone someplace else.
Well, a guy like Tom Brady sat behind for how long till he finally got his shot?
Would he do that today?
I doubt it.
He probably would have transferred out of there.
Well, I don't know that. Who knows?
I don't know. It's a what-if question, Nobody knows.
It's a loaded question because I don't want to indict because Tom busted his butt to get rewarded.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a compelling question. And if it's not Tom Brady, maybe somebody else.
Right.
Somebody else that did real well. So I don't know.
Well, and another challenge that's just come up in the last couple of years, and this probably would have driven you even more crazy, is like the sanctions for endorsements and stuff, the ability for players to be able to make money now.
And that one's going to be hard to sustain. Saban said that the other day.
Yeah,
this one's going to be hard to sustain. Now, this is a in a college locker room and a pro locker room, and you got some deals there. Now, you get parents more involved in pro football; they're not involved at all. And you got some deals that are going to hard to sustain. So stay tuned on that one.
Yeah, they kind of opened up a Pandora's box there, and it's like the wild west as far as that goes. So, Al, Deny of the Tiger. When's that coming out?
August. this is my plan, guys. I'm trying to, again, remember, I'm a neophyte here. I'm a football coach trying to promote a book. So if you want to laugh at me, feel free. Everybody else does. So, but I like football. I approached it. I'm going to research it all. You want to sell a book, you got to market it. Yeah. The best guy to market it is the guy who wrote it. I'm writing a football book about a team more than football, really. And I think as you read it, you realize that more and more. But I got to get out and I got to do it in advance. Throw up a few preemptive shots and tell people it's coming out. Get people a little fired up about it as best I can anyway. And in August, I think right now it's finished the editing stages. It's into the typesetting stages. Everything takes about a month, but they've assured me that it'll come out before football season. So in August, it should come out, maybe late August, and then I'm going to go to Auburn on October 1 against LSU. I'm going to do a book signing there, and if there's enough interest, I'll do a book signing in Michigan somewhere. There's enough interest, but I know down there they're crazy, so they'll go. They'll do it. Now, what I did do in the book that the Michigan fan will find interesting is the ability to do it 18 years after the fact has some advantages. So what I did is I segued to some of the times I coached earlier, right? Even though it's about the 04 season, there's a lot of comparative analysis that goes into the book. I compare coaching a guy like Jason Campbell to coaching a guy like Denard Robinson, which is, believe me, very different, okay? Very different based on skill set. So I spent a whole, little deal on that. And I talk about the rivalries, all the rivalries I've been with, Ohio State, Michigan, the Iron Bowl, UCLA, USC, the Cal Stanford game, all the places that I've been. I talk a little bit about the rivalries. So there's it's not just 04 about 04. It's really kind of a story of my past that culminates with an undefeated season. So it's good for it. It's a good read for all, but it'll scare some people off because it's so the title and such is so geared to Auburn, but there's a lot more in it than that.
So that's coming out in August. Is there going to be pre-sale dates? Do you have anything hard? Anything concrete at all?
No, and doggone it, I've been getting a lot of requests for pre-orders.
Yeah.
Like I told,
it's a ways out.
The Auburn fans are so great. The book could suck, and they'll order it beforehand.
It's a ways out.
They're great. They did because they want anything about their team. They want to know about. But my publisher says they can't accommodate a pre-order. I'm still working on that. Yeah, but stay tuned because I've had a lot of requests for pre-orders. So I'm still working on that. I'd like to get that done, but can't promise anything yet.
Well, we'll be getting copies ourselves, and we'll definitely be plugging the book. Anybody that comes on our show.
And let's do this, okay? I've been doing this with the other radio stations. When it comes out, let's go back. Let's get back together. Okay?
Yeah. We'll give it a read, and we can really.
I'll give you all the time you want, just so I can kind of make it to people listening to you. I can say it's out. You can get it on Amazon, blah blah blah, and then we can talk. Like it'll be right around football, so it'll be perfect. We can talk about.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Season. I'll have a better feel for the climate of college football at that time. So
we'll definitely look forward to that, Al. That'd be great. Thank you so much.